The Rebel Capitalist Show. Let's go over kind of the macro real estate market in the United States, not necessarily for an investor, but just someone who has a home they might be thinking about selling, or maybe someone that's interested in buying a home right now.
It is a tale of three markets.
Right.
And that is, I'm not going to say linear, cyclical, and hybrid, though, when I say that. I usually say linear, cyclical, and hybrid. This time, I'm going to say a tale of three markets, but they do correspond, at least roughly. I'm going to say urban, high density, suburban, lower density, and then rural, extremely low density. Okay.
Okay, so you're
So
changing it up a little bit.
changing it up a little bit, but that does kind of correspond. And then also, I think we have to really look at the luxury home market versus the affordable home market. And the one thing that is surprising me is, well, I guess I should back up just before I even say that. A few months ago, I think probably all of us who were in the know thought the world was falling apart. Okay. I mean, I certainly, I knew that there would be this shift in preferences from, you know, urban city living, high density living to lower density suburban living. And that's
Right,
coming true. Okay.
right.
But I really wondered, I was watching so many of your awesome whiteboard videos and getting other news out there, and I really wondered, like, how sick is the economy? I mean, almost half the country is unemployed when we look at the U.S. The curve was doing the exact opposite of flattening at the time when this sort of got really bad in the
Hmm.
darkest days.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is more powerful? Is it more powerful to have this migration trend shift? Is that going to overshadow the sickness in the economy?
Right.
And the sickness is definitely there, but then, of course, the powers that be have made us avoid the pain again. They won't let us take our medicine and truly heal and get cured of the disease. They keep kicking the can down the road with stimulus bailouts, and you're an expert at that. You talk about it all the time. So
So you got all these cross currents at play here.
yeah,
That's what makes it complicated.
it's complicated. Just like the my favorite Facebook relationship status. It's complicated. Everything's complicated. But what is amazing to me is not that the affordable market is booming. It is booming, and that's no surprise. No surprise at all. The affordable suburban housing. But what is amazing is that the luxury home market is taking off too. And there are certainly a lot of people out there with money. The stock market's been at least temporarily rescued. There's a band-aid over the stock market by and large. I mean, it has its up and down days, obviously. But the luxury home market is bouncing back with a vengeance. And that is a little surprising. I think most of it, George, is really just a repositioning of people with money, with means, wanting to position themselves for the next quarantine, the next lockdown, and they want to be socially distanced. And they're doing that. Boat
I see.
sales are increasing, RV sales are increasing, rural home sales are increasing, suburban homes are increasing. The only thing that is in bad shape is high rise and mid rise living.
Okay, so that makes sense. That goes back to why you're kind of looking at the markets a little differently right now and dividing it into the urban, the suburb, and the more rural areas. So the urban is what's really getting hit, and the suburb and rural, even on the high end, seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, yeah, we're doing better than all right. I mean, just a few days ago, one of our markets, we opened a new market with a really good builder client that we had, and they had a few different markets in Alabama, brand new construction homes. We did a webinar on it. Our clients started buying them like crazy, and then an institutional buyer, a hedge fund, came in and bought 53 of the properties, completely wiped out our inventory in one swoop. We had to close the entire market. It's going to take quite a while for that supply to come online again. Now those are, maybe $180,000 to about $270,000 brand new construction homes in a few different markets in Alabama, and they're completely gone. We have nothing to sell there. But one swoop, 53 properties are gone, and it takes a while for the builder to catch up and resupply that.
Yeah.
And we see this everywhere. People are buying properties like crazy. And what's counterintuitive about that, George, is that 3 months ago, I don't know. I said to one of my investment counselors, we might have to make some hard decisions in the next few months. And to the contrary, at least right now, I mean, business is booming.
But
It's
are
in,
we seeing that with just the investment side, or are we seeing that with owner occupants? And if we're seeing it with owner occupants, where are they getting the money? If half of the United States, or if we've got 20, 30 million Americans unemployed, new people unemployed, and I think the unemployment numbers are understated, just like the CPI, but
of
that's
course
a
they are.
topic
Yes.
for another video. But
Yep.
where are these people getting the money for the down payment?
Well, remember, it's very uneven. A lot of the people that were most severely affected were people that really weren't homeowners anyway, or potential homeowners even. I
Hmm.
mean,
Okay.
it's the old rich get richer, poor get poorer. Sadly, it's just the way of the world. It's a very uneven kind of situation we have right now.
Give us some insights on the rent side. You said
Yeah.
that's a mixed bag. Can you explain that further?
It is a mixed bag, and the institutional apartment complexes in many markets, rents are softening.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Okay.
everybody should really know that.
And those were
Um,
really overbuilt too.
they were overbuilt for sure, but also people are when the first lockdowns lifted, people started to move, and that's when the Great American Move, really started happening, and they were leaving those higher density living environments to get further away. A lot of them were working at home anyway, and if you're on a Zoom call or a Skype call, it doesn't matter if you're 5 miles from work or 500 miles from work.
Right.
It's irrelevant. Okay. So people have discovered, as we've talked about before, George, that you really can live anywhere as long as you have an internet connection, and a decent one. And so people have begun that mass migration. I call it the Grapes of Wrath 2020, after John Steinbeck's famous novel about migration
Right.
during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. And so that's happening. And you do see some deterioration in rents in the institutional apartment buildings. Now, here's the thing that's hard to tell, and you really got to tease out the facts here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And here's what it is: residential single family homeowners, when they're investors, the mom and pop investors, the people listening to this show that might own one single family home rental or 25 single family home rentals, right? That's a mom and pop investor. Nobody surveys them to ask them, did your tenant pay your rent last month?
Mm.
They do survey the institutional apartment owners, though. And there are companies that this is what they do. They do surveys. They call up these institutional landlords, and a lot of them are publicly traded. A lot of them are REITs, real estate investment trusts.
Right.
And so they report their rent collection data. Like, I recently featured a Sam Zell interview on my show, on my podcast, and he was talking a lot about this. And Sam Zell owns, a lot of residential apartment properties and a lot of office properties too. So his apartment or residential properties are definitely faring much better than the office properties that are in shambles. And the retail properties are a disaster. The office properties are a disaster. The housing is not a disaster, but it is softening. Okay. Now, I don't think that is true in the single family home market. I know it's not true with my own portfolio. My rent collections have been fine, and we have really not heard anything from any of our clients, and we've been asking if they are seeing problems with rent collection, and they're not. It's just not. It's not. It's a non-issue
Yeah, I haven't
so
seen that in my
far. So far.
properties either, but I'm kind of puzzled as to why. I thought I might see something. Maybe it's just those stimulus checks coming in from the government. So if you're on unemployment, you're getting probably more than you're making at your job. Maybe that has something to do with it.